Week 8 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I look to sell and trade this week. The first guy, Jock Peterson of the San Francisco Giants. Jock Peterson, over the last few weeks here, this guy's been on a monster tear for the San Francisco Giant team. After the first couple weeks, he got off to a great start. Then he went ice cold for a 4 week span. But on the season, 12 home runs, 29 RBIs, 19 runs scored, a stolen base, a 277 average, and a 353 on base. So right here, Jock Peterson, what a season it's been for him so far. But the last couple weeks is where he's been on beast mode. 5 home runs, 15 RBIs, 6 runs scored, a 448 batting average, and a 556 on base. So this guy here, he's pretty much stoppable. He's getting on base pretty much every game, and he's been a mainstay for the San Francisco Giant team since they signed him here. So the last few games here for Peterson, May 24th versus the Mets was his breakout. 4 for 6, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, 3 runs scored. May 25th versus the Mets again, 1 for 2, a homer, 2 ribs. May 27th at Cincinnati, 1 for 3 with a rib. May 28th at Cincinnati, 1 for 3 with an RBI. May 29th at Cincinnati, 1 for 3 with a run and a rib. May 30th at Philly, 1 for 3. And May 31st at Philly, 2 for 3 in that one with a home run and 2 RBIs, especially a clutch home run by Peterson in the 11th inning to get the Giants the win versus Philly. So right here, before that May 24th game where he had the 3 home runs, 8 RBIs versus the Mets, he had a long conversation with Barry Bonds, and he's been on a Barry Bonds pace over the last few weeks here, but obviously it's not going to last, hitting over 450 and having on base at over 550 here. So right here, where he was a free agent in most fantasy leagues just a week and a half ago, was Peterson. Last Monday or Tuesday, this guy's owned him 74%, and he's on a tear. But right now, while his value is going to be at its all-time high, I believe, this season here, he's a perfect candidate to sell high and trade here. And I think you could get a great starting pitcher in a deal for Peterson. But hey, maybe he could prove me wrong and keep up big numbers. But no way he's going to be hitting over 400. And no way he's going to be on a power toll like this, even though I could see him finishing the year with 23 to 28 home run range, because we know he's a power hitter throughout his career, but never with a high average and with a decent amount of strikeouts. But this season, he's cut his strikeouts down a little bit as well, with only 25 in 119 at-bats. But right now, if the right deal's out there, you definitely sell Peterson high. And when I talk about selling these guys, I'm not talking about trading them for anything. You obviously got to get good value, but I just don't think most of these guys are going to keep up this great pace. The next guy's JD Martinez of the Boston Red Sox. And Martinez, this season, the power is down and the RBIs are down, but the batting average and on base are way up. On the season, 5 home runs, only 23 RBIs, 30 runs scored, a 363 batting average, and 25 on base. So right here, he's hitting the baseball great, but the power down is definitely a concern, in my opinion, here from Martinez, as he's getting up there in the latter part of his major league career. So the last few games here for Martinez: May 25th at the White Sox, 2 for 3, a run. May 26th at the White Sox, 3 for 5, 3 runs. May 27th versus the Baltimore Orioles, 1 for 3, 2 runs and an RBI. May 28th versus the Orioles, 1 for 4 with a run. May 29th versus Baltimore, 2 for 4 and RBI. May 30th versus Baltimore, 0 for 4. And May 31st versus Cincinnati, 0 for 3. So right here, he's playing good baseball. He's hitting the ball well. But I'm not going to say that batting average is going to stay this way. Last season, he hit 286. And I think when it's all said and done this year, he's a 290, 300 hitter at best as Martinez. So right now, while he's on a tear, especially over the last 2 weeks here, hitting 435, but once again, no homers and 4 RBIs, that's just not going to cut it in the long run. Because he can get all these hits he wants, but if he's not driving in runs and hitting home runs, it's not going to be that great for fantasy owners, and he'll pretty much just be a batting average and on-base guy, which is nothing wrong with that. But what you expect from Martinez is 25 to 30 homers with about 100 runs batted in, and so far this season, he's definitely not on that pace, and he's getting a lot of singles so far this year. But right now, with a high batting average like that, you definitely could sell him and still get great value for Martinez this week. The next guy, Francisco Lindor of the New York Mets. So Lindor, he was in a bad slump early in the season, but he's really picked things up over the last few weeks, and his stats have definitely bumped way up there on the season. 8 home runs, 42 RBIs, 37 runs scored, 7 stolen bases, a 260 average, and a 346 on base. So the last 2 weeks here really put his numbers up. 2 homers, 20 RBIs in the time, 16 runs scored, 3 stolen bases, a 353 average, and a 433 on base. So right here, I know Lindor, he was great in his Cleveland Guardian days, and then last season coming to the New York Mets, he was a total bust, only finishing the year with 20 home runs, 63 RBIs, a 230 average, and a 322 on base. But right now, over the last couple weeks, he's taken advantage of some bad pitching staffs here. The Mets have had a pretty good schedule for the most part, especially versus starting pitchers over the last few weeks, where their offense has exploded. And I don't think it's going to hold up at these levels, where in the last week alone here, the Mets have scored 13, 12, 8, 8, 13 and 10. So right now this offense is red hot, white hot, but it's not going to continue, especially with a tough West Coast trip. I think some of these guys, their stats are going to go down and they're going to be intact, because Lindor last week, player of the week with 14 RBIs in a week. There's just no way, in my opinion, that holds up. So the last few games here for him: May 23rd at San Francisco, 1 for 5 with a run and 2 ribs. May 24th at Frisco, 2 for 4, a homer, 6 RBIs, 2 runs scored. May 25th at the Giants, 2 for 4, a homer, an RBI, a run. May 27th versus Philly, 1 for 2, 3 runs, an RBI, a stolen base. May 28th versus Philly, 2 for 3, 2 runs, 3 RBIs. May 29th versus Philly, 0 for 5 with a run and a rib. May 30th versus the Nationals, 3 for 5, 2 RBIs, a stolen base. And May 31st versus Washington, 1 for 5 with 2 RBIs. So Lindor, yeah, he's hitting great with runners in scoring position over the last week or two here. But we'll see now when things are going to tighten up. And it's going to be tough at competition with the Mets going on a 10-game road trip on the West Coast here. So right now, he's playing great baseball. I know he plays at a weak position at shortstop, which bumps his value up even more. And I think right now, with the resurgence so far, you could possibly get a good pitcher and a good hitter in a deal for Lindor. So right now, if the right deal's out there, I definitely would go out there and make it, because right now he's white hot and he's taking advantages as well of poor pitching staffs. Here's Lindor. The next hitter I look to sell and trade this week here is Luis Arraez of the Minnesota Twins. So Arraez, a lot of versatility here for fantasy owners. He pretty much plays everywhere: first, second, third, and outfield. So just shortstop and catcher, he don't qualify on the season. He's white hot as well. A homer, 12 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 25 runs scored, a 351 average, and a 442 on base. But the last 2 weeks here, those numbers are out of control. 421 average, 492 on base, no homers, 5 RBIs. So right here, another guy who's not going to hit for power, obviously. Last season, 428 at-bats with 2 home runs, but he had a nice 294 average, so he's not going to hit homers. He's not going to drive in runs, really. Only 42 last season as well here for Arraez. But right now, he's white hot hitting the baseball, but that's not going to last as well. And once his batting average goes down, he's just going to be another guy who can get on base a little and hit, who's versatile at positions. But right now, he's versatile and hitting over 400 over the last few weeks. It's a perfect time to sell Arraez, and I think you could get a decent quality starter in a deal for him. So the last few outings: May 24th versus Detroit, 2 for 4 with a run. May 25th versus Detroit, 1 for 5. May 26th versus Kansas City, 1 for 3 with a run. May 27th versus Kansas City, 2 for 5, a run, a rib. May 28th versus Kansas City, 3 for 5 with a run. May 29th versus Kansas City, 2 for 4 with 2 runs. May 30th at Detroit, 1 for 4. May 31st in a doubleheader yesterday at Detroit, 2 for 9 with 2 runs. So right here, his batting average is way up. The versatility is one of the best, if not the best, in fantasy baseball. No doubt about it, qualifying at 4 positions. But right here, we've seen it throughout his career. He's not going to bring power. He's not going to bring runs batted in. And he's not really a stolen base guy here, as Arraez. So right now, I think this average will definitely fizzle out, and he'll probably hit 290 to 300 on the season. But that's pretty much it that he'll bring to the table. Here's Arraez. So I could sell him high this week here. And the 5th and final hitter I look to sell and trade this week, Dalton Varga of the Arizona Diamondbacks. So Varsho, he still qualifies as a catcher, even though the majority of the time he's playing the outfield here for this Diamondback team. On the season, 8 home runs, 22 RBIs, 27 runs scored, 262 average, and a 340 on base. So right here, I know Varsho is the leadoff hitter for this Diamondback team, and he's been a pretty decent leadoff hitter this season for them. In the last couple weeks here, he's playing good also. 310 average, 2 homers, 6 RBIs. So Varsho, his strikeouts, they're middle of the pack this season here. He's cut them down just a bit. Batting average is good last season, finishing the year 240s. But right now with that catch eligibility and him playing virtually every day, that definitely bumps his value up because I think the batting average is going to drop. And he's a guy that's not really known as a power hitter, even though he's got 8 home runs so far in the season. So the last few games here for Varsho, May 24th versus Kansas City, 2 for 4, 2 runs, a homer, and RBI. May 26th versus the Dodgers, 1 for 4. May 27th versus the Dodgers, 0 for 1. May 29th versus the Dodgers, 0 for 1. May 30th versus Atlanta, 0 for 3. And May 31st versus Atlanta, 1 for 2. 3 runs and an RBI. So right here, he's playing good as Varsho, but I just don't think it's going to keep up. And he's got great value, like I mentioned, especially qualifying a catcher. So that's a few hitters I'd look to sell and trade here for Week 8 of the fantasy baseball season.